And we're back. Oh man, thank y'all for tuning in for a special episode here, y'all. It's been one full year, so welcome to Black Friday, where we have myself, Christian, we have Omar, we got Chris, and we got Sunny. We got some special guests on today. We have, especially from Those Other Girls podcast, we have Mallory and we have Victoria. Thank y'all for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Same.
So for those of the people here that don't know them, would y'all mind giving a little bit of background about y'all, what y'all do with your show, and then about yourself a little bit personally, and professional life, and everything else?
Okay, you want me to? I'll go
you
first.
go ahead now.
So we are the co-hosts of Those Other Girls podcast. Our podcast, we talk about life, relationships, pop culture, and now true crime from a Christian conservative perspective. Our idea is to be like a fun, girly, talk about things like Demi Lovato, but then also talk about, for example, Texas Heartbeat Bill, and it's all coming from a Christian conservative perspective. The idea came from wanting a fun, girly podcast. There's tons out there, but wanting that wasn't filled with like raunchiness or like a bunch of random leftist ideas or like every other word wasn't a curse word. So then we created this. We are available wherever you listen to podcasts. We have a YouTube channel and a Rumble. I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, we want to create a community. Like, we feel like a lot of like young women our age, it's all the podcasts that are geared towards women is really focused on like a leftist perspective. Like, we want to be essentially like a Call Her Daddy, but for like Christian conservative women. Like, that's kind of where Mel got that idea from, because it's like all the top podcasts for women our age are about like hookup culture and pro abortion, and really like we want to be able to talk like fashion and what's going on, pop culture, and what's going on in the world, but not be like and not be like, hey, like abortion's cool, you know, like that's completely like like we want the pop culture side, but not like the leftist side. And that it's like, it's cool to be married and have kids, and it's cool to wait till marriage before you have sex.
It's cool to be feminine. It's cool to care about your hygiene. And even like with the true crime, like I'm very much into true crime. Vic isn't as into it as I am, but I think she's slowly coming around. But even like all the top fun true crime, I'm thinking of two podcasts right now. Every other like episode, they're doing a dig at conservatives or a dig at like Christians. There's one particular podcast, they are not Christian anymore, so they like make digs at them, which is, everybody has the right to do that if that's how they feel. But sometimes you just don't want to hear that. Sometimes you literally, I know for me, when I turn on a true crime podcast, I want to hear what happened. I don't really need to hear your
I want the extra commentary.
Yeah, I don't want the extra commentary. At the end, if you want to add, okay, I think this because of X, Y, and Z, that's fine. And that's what we do with ours. At the end, we try to end it off with a lesson. So like, okay, this is what happened. And then, okay, why is this wrong? What could you do differently if you were in the situation? Things like that. So yeah, that's basically it. We, like she said, we're doing a community. So we have a Facebook group. It's called Those Are the Girls Chit Chat. So we're trying to like get that started up. So I forgot the other thing that we do. So right now we are actually raising money to get pads and tampons for a women's shelter in North Carolina. That actually part of it now, some of those are going to go to a middle school. Someone reached out to me and asked if we could just provide some for a middle school so the girls can have them like in the I guess either in the bathroom or like in the office or something like that. But like that's another thing that we also are really big on. Like, we're not just women who talk about culture, we're not just women who talk about how these things are terrible, but we also want to be women who are doing our part to help and to make changes and to do action. We also do get into politics. We're both very involved in our local GOPs, and we have encouraged women to vote. We have encouraged women to join clubs. We just want to not just be women who talk, but also women of action. So yeah, I guess that's it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's actually really refreshing to hear. I love it. No, it's nice to get away from those. I was actually at a stand-up comedy show this past weekend, and there was a female comedian, and she made no references to her own genitals or her sex life. And it was
Oh,
actually really, really cool because she was actually
nice.
really funny. She was really funny, and she didn't have to like go hacky comedy on her and anything. And I'm like, wow, like it was pretty cool. So it's like, hey,
Yeah.
like it's doable. So that's really, really neat. So yeah, no, love to have that on here. So one of the first things we wanted to hop in on here is that the Texas heartbeat bill is in effect after the suspended ruling from the judge fell through, and now I mean everybody's mad online, of course. And,
Yeah.
everybody's just angry, and so
Yeah.
yeah. And I saw some interesting posts on Instagram today about the pros and cons of this, from a pro-life perspective. And I wanted to know what you guys thought about, what this could mean going forward, and the implications of this.
Yeah, go ahead, Mel.
Okay. So the Texas heartbeat bill is a good thing. I think that we are pro-life. I'm womb to tomb. You womb to tomb.
What does that mean exactly?
I'm also anti-death penalty.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
I've never heard that. Okay.
Oh yeah. So we're pro-life, womb to tomb, no exceptions. So any step in this direction is good. So I want to start off with saying that. Because we believe life begins at conception, we can admit that the babies that are between conception and 6 weeks, unfortunately, are lost. Now, it is a good thing, the 6 weeks and up, because that's about the time where you can hear the heartbeat. That's positive, but we can admit that in between time, we do lose babies. So it's a tiny step in the right direction. And there's a huge discussion on incrementalism around that. There's a lot of, because I'm friends with a lot of pro-life people, and some of them don't think the bill was good, and we shouldn't support bills like this because it's still not enough, which I understand. Yeah, so, and I know a lot of people think that way, and I understand where they're coming from, and I agree it is not enough. But the reality of the situation is they're not. I mean, we can't get that far just yet. I think it's possible. We just can't get there just yet. So I think we should take what we can get at this moment. That's my personal opinion on that. And I know my friend Melanie, who comes on our podcast sometimes, she's in Texas, and she was explaining to us that there was a harsher bill. There was a bill that was sent there that was an abolitionist bill, but it didn't go through. This is the one that went through. So I think we can celebrate our wins. So this is a good thing. And I think, but we can't stop there, because the reality is there's still babies in that time frame that are not being saved. Another thing that people don't talk about a lot is they have also banned chemical abortion pills. So that does help a little bit too. So sometimes between the conception and the 6 weeks, people will take the pill, but they've banned those. So that has helped save a lot of babies during that time too. But yeah, so that's, I mean, yeah, I think that's my opinion on that.
I did have a question for you, Mel.
Yeah.
So with the pro-life, a lot of times the argument that those who are pro-choice come to you with is that you can't be pro-life and pro-death penalty. Now, I wanted to ask you personally, is that from a more of a moral standpoint, or is it more of like a governmental funding standpoint? Because I know a lot of people differ on that type of aspect.
Yeah. So there are pro-life people who are pro-death penalty. Just want to put that out there. But like personally, yeah. And I don't think there's anything necessarily like wrong with that. I don't think it's inconsistent necessarily. I just don't agree with it for a myriad of reasons. So as a Christian, I do think that we should not have the final say. I think that God should have the final say. And I think that everyone should be given the opportunity to make that change. So especially as like a Protestant, I believe that like even on your deathbed, the worst example I can think of is Hitler. Evil, awful man. On his deathbed, if Hitler says, "Dear God, I believe in you, save me, I need a savior," we will see him in heaven. Now, I don't think he did that. And some people don't even think he's dead right now. But if that's that's how I see it. So I think everybody should have that opportunity. That's one reason. The other reason is actually more expensive, like from the governmental standpoint, it's actually more expensive to have someone on death row than it is to have them in jail for life. I also think like what could really mess with someone who's done some heinous crimes would be more of to put them in solitary confinement for the rest of their life. Now that is, if the research on that's kind of cruel and unusual punishment, but I think if your crime is enough that is more of a painful thing, and death is so final. I just, that's another thing too. Death is so final. So like if someone commits an evil, awful, heinous crime and we give them death, then it's, I don't know, I just feel like that's not enough. Like not to be like morbid, but like we can do so much more to avenge whatever crime they did to somebody.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's a big, especially among Christians, moral type of thought. And I personally, I don't agree with the death penalty in the aspect of government funding. As you said, it is a lot more expensive, but I do agree with it if it wasn't as expensive as it is as a Christian myself. And I think I would be able to back that up biblically, and also from a standpoint, and I can see where you're coming from too, because like, if they're on their deathbed, or if they're, have the opportunity to live longer and see the, their ways, because Paul had that same instance. He was like,
right,
I killed Christians, but obviously he changed his life around and, get a lot of people towards the gospel. So I come from a place where, I do agree with it in a sense, but also I see what your aspect is of giving people a second chance, because, I think that's what God does also, is give people second chances. But then also you have the argument of the military, they're going out and they're killing, people, the same country. So it's a big, kind of moral, government funding type of argument. So yeah, I just wanted to see your view on that. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. And just to add this too, pro-life is essentially like anti-abortion. So like the biggest, people have tacked on a lot of other things with being pro-life. People love to throw in, how do you feel about masks? How do you feel about vaccines? All that other stuff to it. But really what it comes down to is babies in the womb. So, I say womb to tomb just because that's my belief. And I think it also too just encompasses everything. Like I don't think people should die. Like I don't think we should intentionally kill people. Now, if someone's coming up trying to murder you, please defend yourself. But like I don't think you should go out intentionally trying to kill someone. So that's why I just say womb to tomb, and with no exceptions, because then there's always someone that wants to be like, well, what about? So I just clarify it.
We appreciate that point.
Hey, Mallory.
Yes.
So as you know, I do work for Students for Life.
Wait, Omar, can we let Victoria get her piece in?
No, he's good.
I was asking something, Christian. I meant to ask her opinion also. Yeah. I'm just saying.
She gets her chance.
But anyway, I was asking now, what do you feel about how do you feel about critical care? Do you agree that the doctor should not be pushing abortion as the first option? Because many doctors do that if you need critical care, such as radiation or and things of that nature. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so I definitely think that I think that abortion should not be an option. Most times you don't have to. I mean, one of the instances people talk about is life of the mother. Most times you can just go ahead and have the child, or there could be life-saving issues. Now with radiation, that is a difficult. I mean, I definitely think that abortion it should not be an option. And I'll be honest, I don't know too much about that specific instance to talk about like that from the scientific perspective, because I would imagine that would affect the child. But I don't know enough to say I still think you should save the child, but I don't know enough to say like what are the options. So like I said, like if a lot of times when they're saying life of the mother or something happens, I know for a fact that there's never an instance where you the life of the mother where the baby cannot at least be born, or they can't do something to save both of them. Like that's an instance, but I don't know enough about the radiation. That's a good question.
Yeah, I've never thought about that question either. We should look into that and like explore that a little bit more, Mal.
Yeah, I was thinking that we should have someone come on and
So I
talk
do
about
say
that.
like there is like a Grey's Anatomy episode about it, I think, but that's like the only time I've ever really thought about it, to be honest.
Well, I guess, but when I think about it, I mean, this is terrible, but do you absolutely need radiation? I don't know enough about cancer specifically, so I guess you could just opt out of it.
That I think that's more of like patient's choice, kind of what kind of treatment you want to go through and what the doctors recommend. I'm pretty sure radiation and chemotherapy are like some of the most effective treatments for cancer,
Right.
but then again, those will also affect your baby. So just
Right.
as a question to both of you guys, would you say that if in an instance that a child like let's say the mother, something was going to happen, the baby, if to be born, the mother would die, like is that an acceptable instance for abortion in your eyes? I mean, I'm just curious of your point of view on that. Like if it's like the mother or the child, should the mother die and abortion should not be an option, or do you think that the mother should be able to make the decision?
So this is like a hypothetical, like there's, because I think what people don't understand is like, okay, the mother could die in childbirth, having the baby. There's a lot of ways where the woman can have like a C-section, be induced early.
Right.
I know like a lot of women get gestacular diabetes. Is that the right word? I think.
Yeah.
They get diabetes when they're pregnant, and a lot of times they have to, for the sake of their health and their child's health, they are induced a couple weeks early in order to have the kid. And so,
And
go ahead, Mel.
well, I was gonna say, and whenever you're in those situations, the doctor needs to save both because it's both humans. If you were in a car accident, the doctor isn't gonna say, all right, let's see. Victoria is she is the co-host of a podcast, but the person she was just in an accident with is actually the president of the United States. Who should we save? Okay,
Victoria, Biden's already mental.
Bad example, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like, there's not an instance where they have to go. Let's see. They should try to save both.
No, that's a good point too, because I've seen, especially here recently, the argument being made that if you have eggs that have been fertilized, and then you have, say you have 50 million eggs that have been fertilized in a hospital, and then you have 10 babies in the room that have just been born, and the hospital's on fire, who do you save? And the argument is that you'll probably save the babies and leave those fertilized eggs, which are technically humans, and let them die. And they're basically trying to say that, and even in people's minds, that those eggs aren't even human. But the reality is that it's an emotional choice. Like, you pick whichever one. It doesn't mean that they're less human.
Right.
But if I had a daughter and you were in the hospital and I was in the hospital, I'm going to save my daughter. I'm not saving you.
Right.
It's an emotional choice, and it doesn't negate the fact that they're both human. So that's a great point.
Yeah.
A lot of the situations are just brought up to further dehumanize people. It's really unfortunate to see. From what I know, at least, like in regards, Chris, to people having surgeries when the mother's life's at risk, it's even if they go and save the mother's life and the baby dies, it's not necessarily an abortion that they have,
Yeah,
it's not even an abortion, but unfortunately,
I wanted to see if it was abortion, like 100% across the board, like, because it's not always a black and white instance. Like, is it always inherently evil? Because I try to stay away from the saying everything is an absolute or anything's an absolute, because there is always going to be that 1 in a million instance where it could have been the moral thing to do. And I am a father. I have a daughter. I don't think that I think abortion is evil. I think that it is murder. I think it is killing children. I was just kind of curious on where you guys are coming from. I like to see where people, how people rationalize their arguments, because that's the only way that we're going to kind of come together and form better arguments, or sharpen our own wit. So that's why I kind of asked that question.
Yeah, and we
Chris,
can provide you some like answers to common like misconceptions that the pro-abortion people have said. Like, for example, people go, well, at 6 weeks I wouldn't even know I'm pregnant, and that's like completely false. And this is where like birth control is really bad for a woman,
Yes.
is because like a woman, okay, we're gonna get real. So a woman's cycle goes through 4 different phases.
Mhm.
The phase where you're ovulating is the only time a woman can get pregnant. It's like the highest there's a woman get pregnant. That usually lasts 5 days. After that, you have about 2 weeks until a woman is on her period. So within 2 weeks, I will know if I'm pregnant or not. It's not 6 weeks, because people are like, well, it's like, because I have my period and sometimes it's late. It's like, no, it's late because you're taking artificial hormones that's messing up your cycle. So what I do is I track my period. I know exactly what phase I'm in. I know when me and my husband can and can't have sex, because when I'm ovulating, we're not ready to have kids. We're not having sex when I'm ovulating. And then I check my temperature every day. Every morning I wake up and I check my temperature to see, okay, I know exactly the day that's my highest ovulation. And so I know exactly when I'm going to have my period.
And
I have a question for you. Sorry, Mel. But my question would be, you said in 2 weeks you would know whether or not you are pregnant. How would you know that? Would there be some type of test you would take? Or
yeah, I mean, you take a pregnancy test, but I would know because pretty much 2 weeks after I ovulated, I'd get my period. If I don't get my period within a couple of days, then I'm like, okay, I'm probably pregnant.
Right.
And just to piggyback off of what you were saying about birth control. So with birth control, all of that, tracking your temperature, all of that kind of is thrown out the window because you have messed up your hormones. And it also goes back to, we don't have really good sexual education. And I went to a Christian school, and I'll admit, Christians, I did not have the birds and the bees with my parents, and we didn't even talk about sex at school. Everything I learned in college from boys who were not Christians. I'll just leave it at that. So like, from that aspect, we don't have a good sexual education, learning about our bodies. And then from the other aspect, at public school, I remember my friend was not my friend, my cousin. Well, I guess my cousin's my friend. Anyway, my cousin in the 5th grade, that's when he started taking sex ed. And I remember he would come back and like this was like when I was in high school, he was in 5th grade, and he would like tell me some stuff, and like I didn't even understand what he was saying, but he was giggling the whole time. Okay, 5th grade, I'm sorry, it's just they're not mature enough to talk about some of those topics, so it's just going in one ear and out the other. So as specifically women, which is who we focus on, we really have to do a better job, because like Victoria said, there's only about 5 days out of the month you can get pregnant. So learning that, we are for abstinence, but let's say you decide not to be abstinent, or let's say you're even within your marriage, just don't have sex those 5 days. And then you would only know that though if you're not on the pill, because when you are on the pill, the quote unquote period you get isn't a real period. When the birth control pill was first introduced, fun fact, women didn't bleed. They didn't have their period at all. And that freaked everyone out. So then they started making it so that they would bleed for at least 5 days out of the month. Yes, Omar.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. It's funny that you mentioned sex ed. Back in my dark days, when I used to be a liberal, I worked for an organization that promoted comprehensive sex ed in public schools here in the state of Mississippi, which is probably going to never go anywhere unless demographics change and people are voting it or whatever. But my point being, now there were some supporters on both sides of the issue. Now I know you say you advocate for abstinence, so do I. Since you mentioned it, would you be okay with abstinence plus sex ed, or a version that?
I think it's important, and I don't think it should be branded as sex ed. I think it should be branded as like, it's essentially as a kid going through puberty. Like, I should know as a woman when I can get pregnant, understanding my cycles, because my mom's like, oh, you're just gonna bleed for a month, like a week for a month. But
they gave me a book, like an American Girl has a book about your body. That's what they gave most of us. Just like, oh, here you go. Like, it should have been way more than that.
Yeah, and I should understand, okay, like in order to not get pregnant, I feel, in order to teach kids like this is why you stay abstinent, like I think you need to tell the whole story. I think you need to explain to kids like, okay, like this is how you get pregnant. And like I did not know I could get pregnant ovulating until I took my Catholic marriage course before I got married. Of like, okay, like, because they explained to us, like, in Catholic, because, like, being Catholic, like, we don't believe in birth control, but I was on birth control for my acne. And they were like, yeah, like, you should be tracking your period. You know what days you're ovulating. Because, like, people, like, women, we don't start tracking our periods until we're trying to get pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why women have such a issue. A lot of women have issues getting pregnant is because, okay, I want to get pregnant. I'm going to get off the pill. Well, it takes a good year for your hormones to reset.
Yes, and to add on to that, that is why I personally think our generation is having a problem with getting pregnant and with sometimes even unfortunately miscarriages, because our hormones are all out of whack. And like Vic said, so I agree, like rebranding it, not just sexual education, but like getting to talk about like tracking your period, talking about like, you know what, because here's the other problem: they put girls on birth control for acne at like 14. There is
Yeah.
no reason you need to be on birth control at 14 for acne. There are a bajillion other reasons why you could need it. There's PCOS, they put people on birth control, endometriosis, they put people on birth control. There's a lot of reasons. Now, obviously, there's going to be exceptions to the rules where there's other things, but the average woman does not need to be on birth control. And if we start at the ages that you start doing sexual education, if you start talking about like how different and special and important our bodies are, and even we had someone on our podcast, Mary Kate, she is a Christian, she's Catholic, so
She's student for life, right?
No, she used to. That's how I met her. She doesn't work. She works for herself now for that nonprofit. But anyway, so she talks about like something that never crossed my mind, but just an example of how like all the female body parts, all of our sexual organs are like on the inside and all of men's are on the outside. So women are like special, like no offense to you guys, but like we're special. Like God made us specifically made it specifically different. So I think it would just, if we talked about it from that aspect, I think it could change people's lives. Now, obviously, there's always going to be one or two girls who are like, for whatever reason, want to have sex, or there's going to be instances where girls are, for example, like trigger warning, like raped or something like that. Will be instances like that. But I also think if we could talk a little bit more about their bodies and use the proper names and like not beat around the bush on certain aspects, then girls could even like feel more comfortable reporting like, you know what, this situation happened and I got very uncomfortable with this guy, X, Y, and Z happened, and they will be able to even know, and we could catch things a lot earlier. You know, we could, it's just a myriad thing. We just start talking about it from if we rebrand it, like if we don't just, and also too, I think it's better so from coming from a Christian school and from a Christian perspective, if we stop talking about like sex is bad from the Christian perspective, and then sex is any and everything from like the secular perspective, like, oh, you have to have, you're not having sex, oh my God, how are you not having sex? We've gotten so far off track of like what's realistic. It's like overhyped on one side, and then it's like almost shamed and terrible even within marriage on the other sides. Because I mean, there's like been sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I just wanted to say too, I definitely agree with that. I'm a Christian myself, and I noticed that a lot growing up as a Christian in a Christian home, and I was homeschooled. That sex is something, as you said, it's so ostracized in the Christian community and made and deemed like it's something evil. Well, it's something holy, in the right aspect, when you do it in the right way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think there needs to be education, as you stated, on what our reproductive systems are and how those work, and then educated on why you need to do that and be abstinent until marriage from a Christian perspective. Because as you said, in our culture today, it's literally everything is almost funded off sex. I mean, you got girls on OnlyFans, you have, guys, everything is
are addicted to it.
Yeah, and in porn, everything's so sexualized. Like a lot of the funding in our country is off of pornography and sex stuff, you know, but also on the other end of the spectrum, as I said, the Christians, they're like, oh my God, like, don't talk about that. But it needs to be talked about. It needs to be shown in a good light because it's not evil done the right way. And I think that's one way we have failed, a lot of us as Christians, because we deem that to be so evil when it's not, if you do it the right way. And there's not a lot of education on it. Because I noticed that myself. I was like you know, I didn't get the birds and the bees. You know, I got to college and I was just like, and I knew a lot about what, you know, how it worked because I love science. So I took a lot of anatomy and stuff like that. But I was like, as I got to college and then people were talking about it, I was just kind of like, oh, okay. Like, I understand a little bit better now, you know. And, but I just think there needed to be a lot more education on that. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, because I would say I was educated in a public school, but a Christian household. My mom kind of gave me like, hey, you're a woman now, you're getting your period talk, but then didn't really talk about sex. She just said like, oh, baby's made when like a man and a woman has sex, but didn't explain like, oh no, it's only like 5 days out of the month and all this stuff. But in my public school education, we were taught, yeah, if you want to start having sex, but you don't want to get pregnant, you have to be on birth control. Like, there's no discussion about tracking your cycles. It's either like you're on birth control or you don't have sex. So then when I got married, I had this like idea that, okay, in order for me not to get pregnant because we're still building our careers, I have to be on birth control. And just realized like that's not the case at all. Like, we're teaching our young kids, like our kids, like this stuff. And it's like, I mean, I'll be frank with you guys. I was on birth control, and in 2 years I gained 40 pounds and struggled gaining weight my whole life.
And that stuff is common, and it's not normal. Like, your body is not supposed to do that, but that does happen a lot on birth control.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, y'all told us to make y'all uncomfortable, so
you know, I mean,
One
last thing before we transition here, Chris. What, you know, you've got a daughter here. What would you like to see here? Like, how would you want this introduced?
Introduced as in like sex ed?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
good question.
my
how old is she, real quick?
She will be a year in 20 some days. So
Awesome.
very, very close to the 1 year mark. But the way that I see it is that schools are not the place for it. And I also say that all the time with religion. When they say bring prayer back to schools, I disagree with that. That's not where prayer is supposed to be. That should be in the home and in church. So with sex ed, I think that should definitely be at home by the parents, and people need to not treat their kids like they're idiots. A lot of people think kids can't understand basic things. I think once they get to a certain age, you know, you need to start telling them about their anatomy. And something that one of you guys had mentioned before was calling their body parts by the actual name and not pet names, because if something were to happen, like I have a daughter, that's something I have to worry about. She needs to be able to communicate with me what actually happened and not use pet names, like actually use the scientific names of like body parts. So I think that's something that parents need to do. That's what I want to see. I want to see parents actually take that role and that responsibility and stop pushing it off to the state and saying, please teach my kids. And I also want to see, you know, that's more on the secular aspect, more on the religious aspect. I also want to see them stop putting it off and calling it a sin. And then, you know, those are going to be also the kids that are going to get knocked up at 17 because they had no idea what was going on and they don't know what's happening. Like you have to be transparent with these kids. You can't keep it in the closet, but also let's stop pushing it on them. Cardi B, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, and I think like the issue in the Christian household is that, okay, if we don't talk about it, then they're not going to do it. And
Right.
that's all fine and dandy when they're living at home until they get married. Now you have kids go off to college, they're working before they get married, and they're not aware of what's going on.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, to piggyback, well, actually, first I'm going to comment on what you said, Chris, really quick, to slight plug. Our episode on Wednesday, we actually are going to speak with, we already spoke with, it's coming out, someone who,
You mean Tuesday?
Tuesday, yep. She runs this organization called Safe House Project, and she talked about like when should you start it's a place for kids who've been rescued from human trafficking, and she said that you should start talking about like things like that at like 3 years old. She started at 5 and she wishes she had started earlier. And there's like books and resources. We'll have it all on the on our
Yeah,
show.
we'll send you the link for the book that she recommends that
Yeah,
she
please
reads to
do.
her kids.
Yeah,
Please
and there's
do.
like a book that I think there's one for like 3 to 5 and there's one for like 6 to 8 of just like talking about like learning the words and like understanding like honestly like pornography, like okay, this it's called Good Picture Bad Picture, really good. And then what you said, so another problem that happens in Christian communities is there are girls that are getting married and they're still, specifically girls, and they're still kind of feeling shame around sex, so they're having a hard time at the beginning, like within their first year of marriage, you know, being able to completely enjoy the fruits and the rewards of a sexual relationship with their actual God ordained husband. That is like something common. So you're right, we have to do a lot better with like explaining like sex and its like what it really is.
And like the connection that you have with your husband through sex.
Right.
Like we explain like you have to wait till marriage to have sex, but we don't explain like the reason why and the emotional intimacy you have with your spouse when you do wait and have like sexual relationships with your spouse.
And sorry, really quick thing about the waiting. And I think also too, we have to do a good job with explaining to girls, specifically Christian girls, that you're not like waiting so God will give you a husband. You're waiting because that's what God has designed and it'll be better in the future. Because I do think one of the things I know, as I'm 26 years old and I have seen like, and you know, being completely transparent, like I have been frustrated seeing my friends or people I went to college with, you know, out there doing their thing, and then I'm, you know, trying to be a good Christian girl, twiddling my fingers like, all right, God, where's my man? But they're out doing their thing and they have people. And so we have to talk about, because and I had to like work on my heart where it's like I'm not, you know, doing these things, I'm not saying no to situations because, oh, okay, God's going to give me a husband, because that's not why you're doing it. You're doing it because this is what God has called you to do, and in the long run it's going to be so much better when you wait. So yeah.
Absolutely. And talking about, you know, the families and relationships, those started in those countries because of Columbus Day. And Columbus. So,
What a transition.
Here on the show, me and Chris,
King of transition.
And so, Chris, you want to talk about Columbus Day a little bit?
Yeah, man. So I don't know if y'all saw, but the best governor currently in American history here, his name is Ronald DeSantis.
Wait, it's not Governor Cuomo? What?
No, DeSantis. He put out a declaration today on Columbus Day. Probably the only governor to do so. In fact, actually, Christy Noem today was American Day. You know, so hey, menos puntos, Christy Noem. I gotta say, not happy, not a fan.
Christy Noem said that.
Oh yeah. She put it on Twitter. If
Oh.
you want to look it up, you can find it. She put Happy Native American Day, she put it up yesterday, talking about celebrating Native American Day on Monday, October 11th, and like all this stuff. And I was like, oh,
well, you
right.
have to think about her state and who she represents and who she needs votes from.
Isn't that her heritage?
She drops the ball a lot lately. I'm not gonna lie about it. In regards to letting men compete in female sports at the collegiate level, and she stayed off of that. That was very disappointing to see.
Oh, we could talk all day on that.
Yeah, and like
to see.
I was so disappointed to seeing that, and I've been like rooting for her. And then there's other things, and then I mean it's not her fault with all the allegations, but then also I'm kind of like, oh, you shouldn't have been. Anyway, yeah, I used to really like her.
Yeah, you know, it's unfortunate, but you know, as time goes on, you know, the truth reveals itself and the frauds get exposed. Hey, so that's where we're at so far, and my man Ron DeSantis is still holding strong, I'd like to say. So I'm a fan, and he's, you know, he gives it up to Columbus Day here, and in reality, here Columbus was an Italian explorer, and people just want to focus on the natives died and it led to a history of genocide. Everybody always focused on the negative things here rather than like, what do we have now? We have a country now. We have a country. There are so many things the Western world was exposed to. This is incredible. It was land-breaking development. He took a biggest risk ever. People usually that went on those excursions and on those trips, like on those boats, usually didn't come back. They usually died. A lot of people usually just die. They didn't come back. He actually found something. He found the Americans. Crazy. He didn't land. Oh, no, he didn't land up in Florida. He didn't land up in Pennsylvania. Okay, guys. Okay. So we know. Like, oh, he didn't discover America. I get it. But it cannot knock about what the achievements and what was found here. It's incredible. This is, literally Columbus, Ohio, like the District of Columbia, named after the man himself. And it's kind of crazy to think, because growing up as children that I could remember in grade school, we learned about Christopher Columbus, and it wasn't what a horrible guy that killed a bunch of people. That's not what I grew up learning. But nowadays, that's constant curriculum. That's what everybody knows now. It's Indigenous Peoples Day, and I'm gonna say it, guys. I'm sorry. This is what gets me canceled. But people always talk about this. It's called Indigenous Peoples Day. That's who we're celebrating. I said, wow, we don't celebrate losers. So I'm gonna leave it there. So
and it's the truth, I'm mostly Native American. And growing up in school, we were taught about Anita, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, and Columbus, and and I never found that as something that is negative. Like that's just that's reality. Every country in the world has been taken over by somebody else. That's just how that is. And so him coming over here and then the expansion that happened, that's just human nature at its finest. And I don't think that needs to be shown in a negative connotation as like there's some type of evil people just because they did it when everybody else in human history has done it. We can talk about Alexander the Great. We can talk about Julius Caesar. We can go on and so forth. I don't know why everybody shows a negative light on Christopher Columbus when all he did was literally found it. I don't even think he was really attacking people. He just found the Americas and then went back and told the king and queen of Spain. And he was like, I found it, So, at the same time, as a person who is Native American, I'm Cherokee.
Also, is my husband.
Oh, that's dope.
He's Oklahoma Cherokee.
Okay. That's what's up. Yeah,
Blackfoot. On my dad's side, we're Blackfoot.
Okay, smooth. And that's another thing too. A lot of people in America have some ties to Native American ancestry. But as I mentioned, that's just it's reality. I don't see how that shows a negative light on Christopher Columbus. I loved the stories growing up, and I was like, he helped. What was it starts with S. I can't think of his name. Help them.
Squanto.
There we go. Yeah. They helped them how to plant, and they gave us the fish in school, and they told them to plant with the corn and all that stuff. That's history.
Mayflower,
They taught us history, and it gave me a love for history. One of my favorite subjects is history. And growing up, just being able to learn, human history, as I've already stated, every country in the world has been ran over and taken over by somebody. So I don't see why Christopher Columbus is showing some negative light.
It seems that conquering becomes bad once white people do it. That's really what I'm noticing here. I feel bad. It's just it's like it's bad, but that's literally that's human nature. That's what we've done since the beginning of time here in biblical times. What was happening, till now, it's really what we've known to be true.
Right.
And that doesn't make no. But the whole thing is you don't keep that same energy. Nobody keeps the same energy.
We can talk about
that's an issue to me.
Those who are Arabic, who took over countries in the Middle East. We can talk about people in Africa who took over countries. They fought amongst themselves and took over, and expansion. Like it's just, if you look at a timeline of human history, you see it happening all the time. People just taking people over. So I don't see why Christopher Columbus and the Spaniards coming over. Of course they're going to. That's human nature. We have all this free land. We have Native Americans standing our way. We have the better weapons and equipment and the horses. I'm going to run you over, we're going to take it over. And a lot of it was partnerships with Native American tribes, which they don't want to talk about either. A lot of Native American tribes, especially those in the East, partner with the Spaniards. And a lot of those in the South, West Southeast partner with the Spaniards. And we're like, hey, we want to attack them. Can you help us? And they were like, certainly. And so they helped each other, so it's an oxymoron to me. I don't get it.
Yeah. What do y'all think about Columbus Day? Y'all celebrate Columbus Day? You call it Indigenous Peoples Day? What do y'all do? What do y'all think?
I had to work.
Oh man, we got today off. I'm not gonna lie.
So I think I don't really have much to say because I worked today, so
your company didn't even recognize it.
So
it's supposed to be a federal holiday. It really is.
Yeah.
Well,
it was for me. I didn't have to work, so.
Well, do all companies celebrate every federal holiday?
No, mine
You'd have
does.
like
And mine
60
does like
days off then, yeah.
The post office makes some federal holidays out of the
Yeah.
blue. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
They're closed today.
What a lot of them do that I noticed, because I used to work for a university. A lot of them, especially schools and such, they, instead of taking like Columbus Day off, they'll take, what is it, Veterans Day? It's another holiday
Yeah.
coming soon. And so
I
they'll
have
use
that
that
day
one
off.
instead.
well, I used to have both off. So
Yeah.
like in
So
school.
when I worked for the college, one thing they let us do was pick which one we wanted to have off. So they're like, if you want Columbus Day off, you can have that off, or you can have Veterans Day off. So they kind of allowed us, but it's pertaining to each kind of like job and school district and things like that, to kind of how they want to do it. But it's a holiday, so.
Yeah, for my company, it's like just religious holidays. Like we don't even get like MLK Day off or like President's Day.
That's interesting.
What company is no?
No. We need her to keep her job for right now. Well, okay. So my opinion on the Columbus Day debacle. Okay, so companies should not be conquering, but I'm sure they do. Countries, people conquer. That is that's a fact of the matter. That's the brutal truth. I think we have gotten to a point where and I don't like using the word emotional in a negative way, because God has made women to be different from men, and one of our strengths is being able to empathize and have emotions and to care from a different perspective that men care from. So I don't like to use it in a negative connotation, but I do think we have gotten a little emotional, because as a woman, when I hear like, oh man, people did murder, that is sad. But first of all, Columbus, like you said, I don't know, I wasn't there, but I don't really, if Columbus was the leader, I don't really see him going up randomly stabbing, different Native Americans. I don't see him doing that. He could have, for all I know. But I think we've just gotten to this point where we're just like, as a country, everybody's just like really sad and emotional about things. So they're just kind of adding things. I do think it is very strange that all of a sudden Columbus has gone from this amazing hero that helped discover a great country that we have. Like, he went from that to, oh, he's this evil man. We have to switch it over to Indigenous People Day. I think that is very sign of the times, I guess, for lack of a better word, that it's just transitioned like that, and that people also too, I just think it's so strange. People have made Personally, I think it's so strange people have made such a big deal about this Columbus Day thing that it changed. Like in my phone app, it doesn't have Columbus Day anymore. It has Indigenous Day for all of my. So I just think that's, to me, I don't understand why it was such a big deal that people would have to change it. And like you said, like we went from celebrating Christopher to like, not. So I just it's I don't know. Like I just think it's strange that we switch, and I think part of it is just us being emotional country now.
Seems a lot of victim mentality. It seems like a lot of
Yeah.
victim putting up on the pedestal from that to even like the George Floyd statues that we're seeing now. It's just crazy. It's crazy. We're putting up people like on these pedestals that in any sane society that we would ever think of in the past, these things would not have happened. And now we're at that point where these things are just up in front of everybody's face to see. And it's like, oh my goodness, okay. Like we're just gonna go ahead and just put these up here. It's like if you are a victim of something, you are worthy of being put up on it. You get a holiday, you get a statue made, you get whatever it is, you get a street named after. Like, it's just crazy. Like, you didn't even have to accomplish or achieve anything necessarily to do that. You just
You just gotta be a criminal, bro. You just gotta be a criminal.
And really quick to comment on that, I think that also shows another sign of the times that people are taking this one instance, this one thing that was highlighted, and they're making it bigger than it needed to be. I think we can all recognize, yes, image bearer, someone that was a human being died. That is so sad. It's awful. But taking it from being that's so sad to statues for someone who didn't, I feel bad talking about him like this because he's dead,
a
but like
martyr.
he didn't do
He's been a
anything.
martyr.
Yeah,
he's a martyr.
he didn't do anything. Like I hate this. Like that's just the fact of the matter. Like as a matter of fact, he there's allegations for a laundry list of criminal activity. So like it just shows that people are just latching on to things. They're taking things. They're just picking and choosing out of history. Because here's the other thing too. Sorry, back to the Columbus Day thing that we're past that. Like it's not 1492 anymore. And I'm not saying that history doesn't matter at all. I'm just saying like we've moved past what happened. So to me, I think that we can acknowledge, okay, yes, some of Native Americans did die. A lot of Native Americans died. I mean, comparatively to how many are here now and how many aren't, we can admit that was a sad event. But like there's so many great things that have happened after that. There's so many great things that we're here in a great, I mean, even like looking at this whole group of people here, like, this might not have happened. Like, there's just so many other things that we can like move past, I guess. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It's over. Like,
Kind of going off of that, for one, and I'm like Sonny, one of my favorite subjects in school was history. I minored in it, should have double majored. Anyway, the thing about that entire piece of history, Christopher Columbus was not here to discover America. He was trying to find a quicker way to
India.
For one. People don't realize that. They don't realize that people back then thought the world was smaller. Heck, they thought the world was flat. Okay, so you gotta take that. Right.
We've proven that yet.
That's why they're called Indians instead of Native Americans.
Right. You got to take that one into account. For two, if I'm getting off of a boat and there's a whole bunch of people I don't know ready to stab me, yes, they're trying to protect themselves. You got to put that in there. They are trying to protect themselves, but I have to protect myself. I have the better equipment. Number
Valid
one.
Valid point.
I wasn't even trying to discover new people, which really they weren't discovered. It's just that another part of society just came in contact with Native American society. That's what it was, for one. For two, we like to carve out those bad pieces. No, we have to study all of the history and then come to a conclusion. The fact of the matter is, the man was not here to discover America. The man did not come over here to kill people. The man was trying to trade with Indians from India. And doggone it, I don't think they were going to get in the shooting war anyway. They just brought that for self-defense. They were not there to go shoot people. So, study all of history. And going back to what you said, Mallory, so many things have happened since then. People have evolved, people have changed. So many great things have happened to make us who we are, build us to who we are and what we're going to become. Whether it's in our individual lives or us as a society, we have to move past that. Let's recognize the history, let's learn from it, and move on. Then just carve it out and say, oh, you white people are wrong. Oh, this is wrong, that is wrong. Now, I'm going to tell you this, and people are going to hate me for this. Now, what if black people had the guns and the boats and went and pillaged white people? Would we be wrong?
It would have just been conquest, bro. It would have been perfectly fine.
Exactly. Thank you.
What you said, Omar, I completely agree. It's another history minor.
Wow, all these history people.
Yeah, I know, right? Really, what you were saying about history, and what I have a problem with nowadays is history with an agenda. That's not what I'm all about. I want to actually hear the story. Where today, the whole Indigenous Peoples Day, it is not because they want to tell history. It's because they have an agenda saying white people are evil. And also, there are people on the other side who are saying that Columbus is a hero. Well, I wouldn't call him a hero. I mean, he did great things. He founded a whole nother side of the world, technically founded, and that's a great thing. But I wouldn't call him a hero, but that agenda that people tie to history, I really have a problem with that, because that's when history starts to get twisted, and it's not actually factual anymore. So they're talking about the massive genocide and things like that of natives, when the majority of natives died of disease because natives weren't ever introduced to diseases like typhoid, influenza, and measles and smallpox, all those things. I think historians are estimating it's like 70% of those that died between 1492 and 1600, which were, I think, like in the 50 millions ish. Like the majority of that, 3/4 of them died from disease. It was not from violence. So that's something that a lot of people need to realize, that it's not like Christopher Columbus knew that he was coming for biological warfare. He was not coming to start sneezing on the natives. It just so happened that way, and they ended up dying. And that's not necessarily anyone's fault until they started using that as a way for warfare. But initially it was not that fault. So when they try and blame Christopher Columbus himself, I don't think he was, like, if you brought him to today's standard, he would not be a good person. But you can't judge historical figures on today's morals. You kind of have to go back, and that's something that I say about everyone, because if you do that, everyone in history has been a terrible person. Even go back 10 years ago, everyone who was in history, they are bad people. So you really have to kind of take away your emotional appeal when you're looking at history and look at it objectively. And people don't know how to do that anymore.
I love everything you just said.
Well, thank you.
And I would say too, Chris, that I've had arguments on this same line, and what people will say, well, absolutely, they died of fevers and diseases and things like that, but their argument is he should never came in the first place. I'm like, how dumb of an argument that is that you're telling people that they can't explore the world. Right. And how would they know that the diseases that they have become immune to would affect them at their time?
If you want to use the same argument, then be like, well, the Chinese people should have stayed in China. We wouldn't have that coronavirus. That's that argument. That's the same argument. And that would, and they call Trump racist for that. I'm just saying, mic drop.
And my thing is, I tell them, how would they know that in the 15th century? They wouldn't know that. Like, how are you supposed to understand that? The diseases that you have become immune to, and you don't even know what bacteria is, you don't have a microscope, and you go to a whole other designation, and then you're complaining because they got diseases and stuff you had no idea that you even had become and build up a resistance to. That makes no sense to me. And as you stated already, that same energy can be applied to the Chinese and the coronavirus, which they have let out of their own lab. So yeah, it's crazy, man.
So basically, Sonny, some of the arguments you get in, they're saying that everyone should have stayed in their own country. We should not have had trade at all with anybody, and basically because of trade and other people meeting other people in different societies, we, without that, we wouldn't have technology, for instance. So basically, we should have just stayed tribal and not have had anything.
Right, exactly.
That's how people are these days.
Even, I will say this also too, just to add, even just fun leisure. Like, I love traveling. Up until this last year, I've gone out of the country every year for the past 6 years. We wouldn't have been able to do that. We wouldn't have been able to have planes. Like, it just doesn't make sense, the idea that you just stay in. And I think you guys made a very, very good point that I'm going to start using, saying things about not judging people in the history from that past standard. And then also too, he didn't have the intention. Those are such good points.
I just want to add this final point, that if Christopher Columbus did not discover the Americas, we would not have coffee. Wow. And I don't know where my world would be without coffee.
Victoria, that is such a good point. And I'm
going to drop the mic right here. Coffee, I've been waiting. Y'all make some great points, but y'all forgot about the coffee.
Yeah, we're gonna drop the mic on that one. We're gonna slide over here, transition here. While we just started this podcast, I got a notification on my phone that the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders now, Jon Gruden, has been fired over his emails that were discovered from over a decade ago. In these emails from discovered a decade ago, he was caught allegedly using a racist trope here, saying that the head of the NFL Players Association, Maurice Smith, had rubber lips, and that's something that Gruden says he would always use to criticize somebody that he would catch as lying. In this sense here, apparently, regarding a black man's lips, it's in the past history, that's what they're getting at here, saying, oh, it's a racist trope. Then they did more digging and allegedly found more emails where he used homophobic, nomenclature, verbiage and whatever else and stuff over the past years in regards to Roger Goodell and the first gay NFL player, and they're just going through down the line. And he's out of a job. He has been fired.
And he's not going to get hired either.
Oh yeah,
No,
his
not
term's
this.
over.
I thought he
We
resigned.
have grown men on ESPN crying.
Same thing.
In their chairs about this, literally in tears crying about this.
Can I
because
ask a
he
question
said
for you
rubber
guys?
lips.
And I would
Yeah.
like to get all of your opinions. Do you think people should be fired or some type of negative consequence to happen to them for things they've done in the past? So you stated this
Ooh,
is
I
10
love this
years ago.
question.
So
Yeah.
do you think, for each of you, we can go down the row. Do you think that somebody who's done something in the past years ago, it's not like it was today, be ostracized, fired, some negative consequence happen for what they've done? And we can start with you, Mal, then we can go on.
Okay, love this question. So I do not think that anyone should be, their past should be held against them if we have seen change. Now, here's the reality. 9 times out of 10, because people are just people, we don't notice or see the change. So I don't necessarily see the point of like holding people accountable for things that they did years ago. So for all, and like also as a Christian, he could be a changed person. For all we know, the rubber lips thing, I've never heard that before. And I'm not gonna lie, that was kind of funny.
I laugh.
I was like trying to be professional and not laugh,
I was
but
like,
that
I
was,
got to use that next time I'm roasting somebody.
that was kind of funny. Also, too, for girls specifically, big lips are in, so it's not that big of a deal. But
And
anyway,
they're kind of rubber, right? They got silicone in them, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah, for certain. Anyway, but like I think things that like he could be a completely different person now, and also too, I think sometimes people just really don't know. I'll just use the rubber lips as an example. We didn't even know what that was, so sometimes people really don't know that. Hey,
I had no idea what that was.
yeah, like people had no, some people could know, like, actually that's kind of offensive. So I don't think we should hold people 10 years from now. If like, this was last night and they saw him saying, yeah, you N-word, that's why you wipe the floor. I don't know. I don't know. But like if it was last night, okay, then yeah, maybe let's hold him accountable for that. But 10 years ago, who knows what this man thinks now?
And I'll add too, I don't know, are you guys familiar with the podcast The Morning Toast?
They probably don't listen to that yet.
Okay, so the hosts are 2 sisters, Claudia and Jackie Oshray, and they were originally the first podcast was called The Morning Breath, and it was done by Yahoo, and they got canceled over some tweets that she had sent out when she was in high school about Muslims, and they're very like strong in their faith, Jewish people. And she's like, I've changed. Like, I'm not that person I was in high school. How can you cancel me over that? And you also need to understand like the context too. Like, they're very pro-Israel because of their heritage, because of their background. And so I think a lot of times people take it out of context, which it sounds, I don't know the full story with Jon Gruden, but it kind of sounds like people have taken it out of context. And I think people need to realize too, it's like you grow as a people. You grow as a person, and like stuff you did 10 years ago is not the person you are today.
Yeah. So more context to what he said here. He was using it in the tense. This is back in 2011, 2012. The NFL was in a lockout at the moment. Mm-hmm. They couldn't reach a collective bargaining agreement, so the league was shut down because they couldn't reach a deal. And he thought that the Players Association, this guy has a lot of pull between the players who are going to decide whether or not they're going to play or not. He thought that guy was lying, because everybody wants to watch football, obviously. So that's why he called him rubber lips, saying he was a liar. He says, I don't have a racist bone in my body. I've proven that for 58 years. He's been doing this forever. In regards to other statements he's made, he's called the commissioner, a bundle of twigs, a few times in some internal emails. But I mean, it's like I'm gonna be real. That's every NFL fan that's been watching football the last 20 years. Nobody likes the commissioner. People say worse things, whatever. It was.
I don't know how he still has a job.
You don't like him.
I don't know how Roger Goodell still does it. Nobody likes him.
Like an NFL commissioner, what does that mean?
So
he's like the head of the NFL. Like he's the president of the NFL.
He hands down the fines. He hands out suspensions. And he's got all the owners in his hand, and they.
Well, think about it like this: who actually hires him? For one, it's the owners. Yeah, if the owners did not want him there, he would not be there, because at the end of the day, the owners can pull out of the entire. The NFL is like, I call it like a union. You can pull out of the union if you want to, and just pull your team out and play little league or whatever. But theoretically, it's like that.
Same with the
NCAA. It's there with the highway. You're not going to play if you're not, Roger Goodell. You're not with Roger Goodell.
Yeah.
You're not
I mean, it's the same with the NCAA. Like, in order for you to there's like another divisions like NAIA, which is like another version of the NCAA. But no one plays in it because it's not where your top schools are playing. So the NCAA has like all this power over these schools because it's all the all the conference commissioners determine who's the head of it. So that's why you have like the Power 5 schools, which are all like the SEC, ACC, Big 12,
Big East,
Pac-12,
the Big East,
Big 10. No.
Okay.
Pac-12.
Pac-12, like they all have all this control where you have like conferences like the American Conference, which I was in at ECU. Like we have like these incredible schools. Like UCF went undefeated and they didn't even get recognized by the college football playoffs because the big top, like the Power 5, are the ones that control the college football playoffs.
Yeah, it's in reality here. It's all set up. It's crony. It's a crony deal in regards to the NFL. It's there's no actual freedom here. We've seen that with the vaccine mandates with the players. It's like, oh, you don't have to get vaccinated, but if you don't, you can't travel with the team. You have to be isolated and quarantined, even if you have no symptoms whatsoever. You're not touching anybody that does, but if somebody has an outbreak, you're the problem here. And it's pretty much shown here. It's like, yeah, you have your choice, but you kind of don't.
Yeah, and you risk your team's championship drive if you don't get vaccinated.
It's bad how they bully people in, but it really looks like Roger Goodell pulled the plug and told the Raiders owner, he's like, hey, this is it. Like, this is like, you got to get rid of him. He's like, and they're not going to say no to it, and they probably just scrapped him right now. And the Raiders are a pretty woke team from what I've seen in the past. They're Carl Nassib was their player, the first guy that come out as gay on their active roster. And
wait, pause. 2 seconds. Okay, so this, I don't know anything about sports. Just preference for everyone. Okay, so this is the team who's the first gay football player came out of.
Yeah, well, I mean, the one got drafted back in 2014, Michael Sam, but this is one that actually on the active roster was Carl Nassib.
Okay, and this is the guy, and he became kind of popular recently, right?
Yeah, he came out during Pride Month in June.
Got it. Okay, so that also gives it more context, because it sounds, once again, don't know too much about sports, but outside looking in, it seemed as if it's basically a business, and you have to make sure that everybody is happy and satisfied with your business. They probably got a lot of people that are like pro their team now because they do have a gay football player. So he probably made this guy quit because you have to please all of these people.
I'm
glad you said that.
His other emails, he also criticized the kneeling. He criticized, the commissioner's job, how he was doing it. I mean, just normal stuff like the average, America-loving people would say. But since he's in that role as a head coach, you can't have those opinions. And it was all documented on the email. So, like, he's toast. He's toast.
Well, I will say, like, why are you firing him? But there's been no discussions on firing of Urban Meyers at Jacksonville.
Thank you.
They talked about it, but they weren't going to.
Well, okay. Have they won a game? No.
No, but he inherited something so terrible. I don't think you can put the
Well,
blame.
he-
No,
on
but
him.
he did
still,
work
like,
with
It's
it,
but
bad.
you're
It goes
dancing
bad.
with a woman that's not your wife, and it's not like casual ballroom dancing. It's essentially like
Ooh,
grinding
Here's
up
the thing.
against her.
interesting. This
Mhm.
is
No, did
interesting.
Urban Meyer say something negative about the LGBT?
That's
No.
what I was going to
Yeah,
get
no,
to
no, no.
next.
He was acting, kind of being infidel, like sort of being, having some relationship, marriage infidelity. But that nobody cares about that anymore in society.
And nobody cares. He's been
I think the
abusive.
marginalized group,
I will add too. He's been abusive coach at every single job he's had. Why do you think he left Ohio State for a year?
Well, no,
Because
that was because he didn't disclose that his assistant coach was abusing his wife, and he knew and didn't disclose.
well,
that.
no,
That's
but he's an abusive coach too. Like
Yeah,
he's abusive to his
it's-
players as well.
it's not it's
Whoa,
not it's not a
sports
good
sound
thing.
interesting.
No, there's a lot of turmoil and mess
Yeah.
there. You have Rick Pitino at Louisville who is hiring strippers and escorts for his recruits
What?
on the trips. Yeah. No, that's
No,
what
no, that was his assistant coach. He knew nothing about it.
Well, of course he didn't know anything about it. He totally didn't.
Wink,
put cash in
wink.
brown bags.
Yeah.
He totally didn't pay him cash.
You
in brown
never talk
bags.
about this aspect of sports, Vic.
I mean, there's a lot.
A lot of scandals, gambling, point shaving, like all sorts of crazy nonsense that goes on. It's a really interesting world when you think about it. It's just a lot of absolute crap. The craziest thing is that the actual like people having moral standards and actually like standing up, like so if somebody was like a strongly convicted Christian and they said that they believe marriage between a man and a woman, they would get fired. Urban Meyer like literally cheating on his wife on video or anything like that, he would not get fired for that. It's crazy, right?
That's
Like Tim Tebow pretty much got blackballed from all sports. What is who
Well,
was
Tim
the coach?
Tebow wasn't a good quarterback anyway.
No, but
He won a national
he got
championship.
ran out of Denver. Okay. He got ran out of Denver. All right, before he should have been.
That's because Josh McDaniels is a horrible coach. He's a good OC, but he's a horrible head coach.
No, but Tim Tebow got ran out before he should have. Okay, I agree with that. Tim Tebow's a great quarterback now, clearly. But
Yeah.
Yeah, because okay, Tim Tebow gets kicked out of Denver because Peyton Manning comes in, and then he gets picked up by the Patriots, who has Tom Brady. Like, come on, we'll take you to the Panthers when we had crappy Cam Newton. We'll gladly take you.
I thought Cam Newton was good.
He's a little.
He's too woke. He's too woke.
No,
And
not
that-
even that. It's just like he got cut. That he wasn't vaccinated at the point of time, so I'm kind of wondering how much that played into him getting cut.
Interesting.
But Bill Belichick said that didn't play a factor at all. He actually answered it directly. He said that's nothing to do with this.
No.
He didn't have anything to do with it. Urban Meyer in the past, like this season, actually mentioned about guys not being vaccinated. I'm like, you could have a lawsuit on your hands. You keep talking. It's like people understand. Like you literally disclose these things, like talking live. Like people are gonna say like. That's why you guys cut this guy when you said it wasn't mandated. So you cut somebody over something that wasn't mandated. Like that could be illegal. But again, the Players Association, the whole union here at the NFL, they're weak and they don't stand up for their players. So they're not going to get anything out of this.
Just to go back to the firing the guy, I just think that's so interesting that it seems as if people can be morally corrupt. They can do all these things, but they say one thing against people part of a specific community and now they're fired. I mean that is so, especially because when I think of sports I think of like machismo, like I think of like that, like that's so interesting to me.
It's unfortunate that a lot of the players in these leagues are criminals. Kareem Hunt drop kicked his girlfriend. You have Tyreek Hill beating his girlfriend. Adrian Peterson whooped his kid a little too hard apparently.
Big Ben raped those women
in the back.
They don't get fired?
All these
and they
things
don't get
happening
fired?
here. These guys are still in the league right now.
Yeah, Jameis Winston had like multiple rapes down at Florida State, and Jimbo Fisher knew about it.
I don't know if they actually did they have evidence on Jameis, or was it just the
yeah there's like a whole documentary about it. Like there's complete evidence, and the girl that was raped, the cop she talked to was head of like the Florida State Booster Club.
Oh my goodness.
I'm gonna have to look more into this.
Okay, so all right, now that's what.
So here's the thing:
on?
they're not America's best and brightest that play in these leagues. Okay, they're not. Not all of them are scumbags. Some of them are absolutely scumbags, but they make millions of dollars and they're good at what they do. And that's what we're putting.
Christian, for one, I don't think he was fired. I think well, I guess a forced resignation is technically firing, but
It's
he
a
did come out,
firing that it's
but
a
he
nice
did come
way to
out and
say
say
it.
I resigned, which I mean that's the record.
None of
according
these
to
coaches are
ESPN.
actually fired. They go, we're gonna fire you. You can either decide to resign on your own, or we're just gonna fire you.
But here's my question now, and this is very interesting. He had a 10-year, $100 million deal to go back to the Raiders as their head coach. It's been less than 4 years into that $100 million deal. Is he qualified for a buyout? And if
I
he is,
believe they're still gonna have to pay him. I think they're still gonna have to pay him.
he's
They would definitely have
They
made
would
a
have to
deal.
pay
$1
me.
million for
They would have
one.
had to
They're gonna have
pay
to
me.
pay him. They're gonna have to pay him.
That's
That was
insane.
definitely part of the deal, like behind the door, closed door deals. Is like, you resign and we'll pay you.
Yeah,
I don't
would've had
feel
to pay
bad
me.
for this guy at all. He's walking away with $100 million, and
Yeah, I know. My
I don't know.
perspective has
I-
changed a little bit.
I
And
feel like
also, also you have to think about it like this. For one, the man was with ESPN. Okay, he was not head coach of the Raiders. That happened 4 years ago. It's the 2021 season. That's 2017. You had 6 or 7 years to hash this out, to do all of this, and you see what the times are. You had all of this time to hash this out, to even bring it to the forefront, spin it like I always say Olivia Pope would, spin it like that,
Yes, Olivia Pope.
and then hire the man and say, okay, he's made mistakes in the past, but you know what? He's amended for those. We're going to fully go forward with him. We think he's our guy. We missed him. We really didn't want to trade him. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. They could have did all of that, but they decided not to. And then this leak happens, and now the man is out of a job. Now, good for him. He negotiated a $100 million contract. Bad because half of it's probably going to taxes, but still. And I don't know what Nevada taxes are like. They're run by Democrats now. So all of that to say, it is too murky for me. I don't think he should have been held to the standard of ESPN. Now, if ESPN wanted to sue the crap out of him, have at it. I don't know what the legal bearing is for that. But to go off and say, hey, you said this while you were at ESPN, now this head coach of the Raiders, but now you're head coach of the Raiders, and either you're going to resign or we're going to put you out. I don't think it's fair. And the Raiders aren't even bad this year, man. Now they're going to tank the season.
Well, that's kind of good. It's going to be their excuse for tanking the season because they're going to do it regardless. But that's it. That's my opinion. Probably correct, by the way, too. But so the last thing here we want to touch on before we all head out is that Netflix has responded saying that we are not going to remove Dave Chappelle's comedy special, Admit Backlash. And I've seen like a lot of like pro-black pages saying like, "Yo, we'll cancel Netflix before we cancel Chappelle." So they're not getting the traction like they really think they're going to get here. And I think it's a step in the right direction here, at least a little bit. And in regards, like they would cancel anybody else if they weren't like if Dave Chappelle's special like was terrible and like wasn't doing good like in numbers wise, they probably would have said yeah, sure. But Dave Chappelle's a killer. He's the best in comedy. He is the best in comedy. They can't do it. If they make too much money, they're not going to do it.
Have you guys seen it?
I watched it. It was hilarious. Great special.
Hilarious. Could not stop laughing.
What
Hilarious.
were they? I haven't seen it. So what were the issues? I know like one thing I did see, he made like a very inappropriate Jewish joke.
Oh, it's all inappropriate, but yes.
I mean, that's
Okay.
that's Dave Chappelle. I mean, if you watch anything he's done in the last 25 years, it's not something I would show my daughter, but it's hilarious and it's funny. And he had the one joke. Yeah, he was making one joke where he was talking about how they keep trying to cancel him over his trans jokes and the things that he's saying about the trans community, but no one really cares about what he's saying about the black community or anything like that. It was a joke that he had said, and when we talked about it on the last podcast, I was saying I'm not going to spoil it. Everyone go watch it, support Dave Chappelle because it's hilarious. But it is funny in today's day and age. It's more likely like they canceled. What the joke was, and I'm not going to say the entire joke, but DaBaby killed a guy, and they didn't cancel him for that. But he made a joke about gay people or trans people or whatever, and that's what got him canceled. It's like you can kill a black man and still be successful, But if you hurt a gay person's feelings, that's where you cross the line. That is, and it's very true in our society that that's how they're viewing it and how they're like pushing it, and it's ridiculous. And I think it's just snowflakes that can't handle anything that's entertaining or slightly offensive.
One of the things I personally like about Dave Chappelle is that he talks about everybody, so you don't have to. So I could understand feeling some type of way if his whole set was trans or XYZ, trans XYZ, trans XYZ, and then he walked off. Then it's kind of like, okay, does this guy have a personal vendetta? That's a little strange. But no, he talked about everyone. His references to just being Black in general, hilarious. The last little section, I missed the beginning. I walked downstairs in my house, my brother was watching it, and I was like, thanks for telling me. So like I caught, I'll say the last like 40-ish minutes. So I missed like the first 20 minutes or so. But hilarious. Like it was, and I really respect that he sticks to his guns and he sticks with like, you know what, this is funny and it's okay for us to talk about this. And I'm not being, and I think he's a perfect example of like, you know, if Dave Chappelle is making this joke, he's not doing it out of meanness. And I think one thing I heard someone say years ago that I always try to remember, and I always try to be better at this, is sometimes we give people thought bubbles. They will make a comment that we agree or disagree with, and then we'll give them thought bubbles as to why they made that comment, when in reality sometimes we don't know. If I say something, you can only take it as you should only take it as what I said. And if you know that I love you and I care about you, there's no reason for you to think that I mean it in a negative way. Maybe I just don't know that this X, Y, and Z hurts you. Maybe I don't know that X, Y, and Z is inappropriate. Like we assign thought bubbles to people, and then that's how it turns into this person's a racist, when really that person could just not know that this means that, or they could be referring to something else. Like there's just so many other things. So I respect the heck out of Dave Chappelle for like always sticking with that. And there's no way they're going to cancel him. Like him and Kanye are uncancelable.
No, Dave canceled himself a while years back. He was just like,
That's
I'm
true.
gonna walk away. Like
Africa.
I'm too good at this. There's nobody better than me. And I could just, and he walked away for a minute and came back later. Like, he can do it whatever he wants. That guy.
Yeah. Him and Kanye are like, I don't know. It's because of their money and like how they've progressed, but like I just feel like they could do whatever they want. Like we say, yeah, we can do whatever we want, but there's just tiny limits here and there. I mean, Kanye, when the fire happened, he was like, I wonder how much it would cost to get my own private firefighters. And it's like, wow, that's never crossed my mind to have my own private firefighters. Probably the reality is, no matter how much money I have, I don't think I'll ever be able to. But he's Kanye. He ran for president under his own party. Like, that's just not something like, these are two people who can just do whatever they want. And I respect that. And I love that. I like that they're able to do that. Yeah. Good for them.
Mallory can do that, right? Only in America. And that's something that people don't only in America these things can happen.
That's very true. Very, very true.
Mallory, I'm glad you mentioned all of that about Kanye. Kanye was saying that while basically, who was that? LeBron James was scared of the police, yet he has his own protector force out there protecting him. But here's the thing: only in America, like y'all said, only in America does anybody have this problem that, you know, I have so much money. Basically, what can I do with it? That's basically what both men are saying.
Yeah. They can literally do whatever they want.
No, for some places, it seems to not like Black people or Black America. They seem to be doing pretty dang good, I got to say. Man. But before we finish this out, we usually always do our final thoughts on this here. So let y'all have your final moments here, and we're going to go ahead and get this done. But man, this has been fun, man. I like having different people on. It's always nice to break up the monotony. We've been pretty busy lately, so we haven't been able to do this as much. And we actually just had one on Saturday morning, so this is crazy. We've done 2 in 3 days, so this is, getting back in rhythm, feeling a little bit better. I feel better. It's after being off for so long. So this is great. But my final thoughts here is cancel culture's crap. Not some things deserve being canceled. That's what I was going to answer Omar or with Sonny's question about. No, certain things, yes, you should be canceled for. If it comes out 10 years ago that you're messing with underage kids, yeah, you should be done. But it's on a case by case basis. But like certain things like that, it just depends. But and overall, in Columbus Day is based, and I don't like anti-Italian hatred. Shout out the fans.
Yeah, I would say the best rule of thumb I've heard for cancel culture, it's okay, if they do something that breaks the law, then yes, they should be canceled. But if they said something, then they should be, okay, this isn't good, but we're going to like kind of help you improve and learn what you could do better.
Yeah.
And I think like that's kind of the best like rule of thumb in my book.
Yeah, fair. I like that.
But I will say my final thoughts, it's great to talk to some dudes. It's usually just us talking to females most of the time, and it's been great to talk about sports because Mallory has no idea about sports, and so I've had a lot of fun. You can catch our show Tuesdays and Saturdays. So Tuesdays we do kind of more like an interview, and then Saturdays we call what we call like our weekly TCAP, which is just kind of okay, these are the top stories for the week, and these are our thoughts on it.
Yes.
We would love to join you sometime.
Yes, let's do a podcast swap.
Yes.
So down.
Yeah, I was just thinking that it will be really good to have some guys on just to talk about, one, to talk about sports with Vic, and then just to also have some good different perspectives on our various topics. Okay, so my final thoughts are I just really want all the girls listening to understand that God made you beautifully, uniquely different from men, but your value is exactly the same. God sees us all the same, but we're different. And that's okay. That's a beautiful thing. We're not better. They're not better either. Remember that too. But for clarification, they're not better, but we're not better either. And I just want all of the girls just to understand that and to remember that. And if you are looking for just a community of like Christian conservative girls, even if you're not Christian or conservative, but you do find yourself a little bit more, not necessarily wanting raunchiness, or if you don't want like if you are pro-life, and I will say that is a huge aspect of our podcast. If you are pro-life and you kind of just want to be around similar people, join our community, listen to our podcast. I think you would really enjoy it. And we even have like a regular fan that like listens to us a regular fan listens to it regularly. That she told me when she reached out, she was like, I just want to let you know that I don't identify as Christian or conservative, but I do enjoy your podcast. And that is how we change culture. That is how we make a difference, because she's not Christian now, but a year from now, we do not know. God knows, but we do not know. So that's how you do it. That's how you change culture. You speak the truth no matter what, in love and in grace. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and if you dudes have any of your significant others that are looking for something, come join our podcast. Let them know about us and join our community. I know for me, I do have a blog called That Political Couple. My husband and I, my husband is like a politician and is involved in the political space, and so we haven't blogged on it in like about a year, but we're about to start up again. So if you guys just want to see what's actually like behind the scenes of like working on campaigns and just some tips and tricks, because I'm busy as I'll get out, but I find time to do the things I want to do. So yeah, so That Political Couple, and then Mal just relaunched her blog too.
Oh yeah, so I also have a blog. Sorry, last thing. We're over here plugging our whole life.
I know.
No. Last thing, I have a blog called Life is Malpal, and part of the reason why I started that is, I started that years ago, just when everybody was blogging and doing all that other stuff. But part of the reason why I restarted it up again is because I do think changing culture is a big part of something that I want us to work on, because that's how we're going to fix politics. That's how we're going to fix this country, is we work to change culture. And I really was tired of seeing like conservative influencers that were conservative influencers as opposed to like influencers that happen to be conservative. And I'm not saying that I'm an influencer at all, but I am going to be doing like different blog posts about like some of the traveling that I do, different blog posts about some of the clothes. I have a Like to Know It now, about some of my clothes that I have, and like just showing like life that, you know, we don't have to follow all of these unrealistically dolled up models, or also too, I'm on like a weight loss journey. I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff with that too. Like we don't have to be following all of these other people that are just not leading us, that are causing us sadness, that aren't leading us in, you know, to Christ, because that's part of like, as a Christian, that's what you should always be trying to do, is like lead people to Christ. So we don't have to do that. We can be cool, trendy, Christian, conservative girls. So yeah, so that's lifeasmalpal.life is the website, and lifeasmalpal is my Instagram.
And I'll add one more thing. Like, we're very passionate. I know, I'm sorry, guys. But we're very passionate about, we want to create a brand and create like a community where, like, we want to create, like what Mal was saying about like influencers, is that like we don't want people to be known as, oh, like Amanda is that Republican makeup influencer. No, like we want to create a community. We want to what is the word I'm looking for? Like we want to like promote and support.
Oh yes, yeah. Promote and support.
Yeah, yes. We want to promote and support like other brands that happen to be pro-life, that happen to be Republicans, not that is their 100% their platform is that they're Republicans, but that they happen to be. So that's what we love, like doing stuff like this with you guys, that like we can talk politics, but we also want to lift your voices up and have that discussion of like, you guys are like pro-life dudes, and there's not a lot of those. No. And there's not a lot of vocal pro-life dudes.
We out here, so we here.
Yeah.
In regards to having you know, people with couples or significant others that might want to listen in, Omar, you got a girl? That a boy?
Oh my God.
Hashtag Omar is
every single time we're on.
Get your girl in that community. That a boy.
Every single time we're on. Do you have to mention that now?
Wait,
and this is when Omar figures out technology.
Are you guys single?
I'm working on it. Chris is taken.
Okay.
I'm currently working on it. I'm working on
it.
Okay.
What does working on it mean? Like you haven't defined a relationship with a girl, or you just haven't found a girl?
He tells nobody.
Oh, wait. What do you mean? Wait, what do you mean?
Like, okay, you say working on it. Do you have a girl?
You just have somebody in mind.
Absolutely
have married.
You have somebody
in mind at the moment. I absolutely do.
Okay.
It's just not.
So can we drop names, Christian? Let's see who.
Exactly. He would get married and we wouldn't know about it, Chris.
Man,
I better be invited to the wedding. That's all.
Exactly. And if you're not, I'm saying this live. I will go in a lime green suit and bomb your. Well, not bomb.
No, Omar, you should be a male flower girl.
Omar, you're too brown to be saying that on the internet. You can't be doing that.
I meant crash, but the word bomb.
No, y'all. I can't no more. Oh my God.
No, Omar, I can visualize you being the one walking down the aisle throwing the flowers at everyone. Have you seen that?
Why am I the flower person now?
Have you seen those TikToks? They're literally the best.
Anyway.
Y'all. I mean, yeah, sure. Like if things come to fruition, yeah, y'all can know. Okay, it's cool. But don't come and I like where things are going, man. I like what I'm doing. I like this. I like being back. Life is busy. Life is good though. Life is busy with purpose. It's great. It's fantastic.
I mean, I will add Mallory single and looking for a Christian pro-life dude.
Okay.
All right, now don't be expecting. Like you're saying, don't expect God to drop them on your lap. Remember how you were saying that? Don't expect God to go ahead and just drop them right there. So go ahead.
I can't hook you up.
All right.
Anyways, all right, y'all. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate y'all taking this on a last second notice here. We've been here for 1 year. This is incredible. 1 whole year of doing this.
Happy
One whole year.
congratulations.
Whole year.
to you guys.
Thank you. It's been pretty sporadic, but we made it through 1 whole year. Been a lot of changes,
Yeah.
a lot of fresh new faces. It wasn't until like 2 weeks after, like, a year ago this year, so like November, I found out that Chris was black. Things crazy. The world's crazy. It's crazy.
Exactly. What I was gonna say, if you look at our Facebook page, a year ago today, October 11th, the 3 of them went to the White House for the Blexit thing,
Yes.
and I wasn't invited
Yeah.
because I was black. I'm just saying, I don't.
Oh my God.
Wait,
apparently
are you
don't-
You know
really
what,
black?
Chris?
Wait,
I
are
am
you
black.
really black? Okay.
I am really black. My father is black. I guess I don't look like it. Everyone thinks I'm like Arabic or Hispanic, but
Ooh.
I had to wait 2 months for
Exotic.
them. I got a call from them. They're like, "You want to be on the podcast?" And on the podcast, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm black." And they're like, "Oh, okay."
Chris, the thought never occurred to us. We got an email about that Newsweek article we were going to
Oh yeah, I remember doing
and
that.
you were in the email chain, and we just were like, "Why is he here?" And the thought never.
I'm throwing Andrew Cipher under the bus right now. I told Andrew that you were black first, then he sent you that email because he didn't know either, bro. I found out first.
That's
I found out first.
hilarious.
I should have put that on my resume, I guess. Like
That's
missing all these
I'm black.
opportunities.
I'm black.
I know. Oh my goodness. And you know what? I missed these opportunities.
No.
Could have gone to the White House.
But Christian, we made it a year. We started it, and then Chris came on, and Sonny came on. It's been awesome. So those are my final thoughts. I've loved doing this. I want to see us grow. Want to see us change culture. Talk about culture, and let people know it's okay to be black and conservative. That's our life's mission, basically.
Can I ask real quick?
Besides being Christian.
What made you guys want to do this?
Well, we do the activist work. We're in the trenches on the ground, so we don't ever really get to talk about other things like besides the work that we do on ground with our college students. We're coordinating events. We're registering people to vote. We're getting people, recruited, but we don't get to have these meaningful conversations all the time and get to talk about what we want to talk about. So we just wanted to find an outlet that we could do that. So that's how we found this. We
used to try that on the phone once a week, right? We did this on the phone once a week, and we were like, why aren't we on the internet?
Love that. This
We're
is
funny
good.
dudes. We're smart. Why aren't we on the internet?
Right.
No, this is great. And really quick, even though this is everybody else's final thoughts, I do want to add, I really do like this idea. This is a really good idea, and the fact that you guys are men, I think, is a even better.
Wait, did you guys know y'all were men?
I just found out a couple weeks ago. It's crazy.
Well-
Crazy time.
The fact that you guys are men is just good because you guys are strong men, leader types, and we just need more of those, especially more of those black men. If I'm being honest, that's something that is needed, and
Exactly.
this is
Exactly.
good.
And those other men,
Yeah.
yeah.
Go-
Don't
going-
say our name, but
Going from that, I'm going to transition to my final thoughts, then I'll be done. Really, what we've all kind of mentioned the last couple of minutes, a lot of, we're all in the activist space. We're all doing something. And that's something I'm finding myself becoming more and more frustrated with the keyboard warriors. On the right in conservatism, those who are not doing anything, who are listening and getting mad, and they're not actively doing anything in their community. I am going to start calling them out more and more. I will be honest. I think if you are not actively doing something to make a difference and you have an opinion, you're a coward. You don't want to do something. And if it's because you're afraid if it's because you're afraid of your teacher, exactly, libertarian rant. I'm glad I snuck this in last minute. But you have it. If you're afraid of your teacher, your job, or anything, finding out your political affiliation, you're a coward. And that's, if you think it's okay to be a coward, that's okay. But I don't tolerate it. I think it's time for people to actually stand up and make a difference, because we are reaching the time where we won't be able to fight soon if we lose this fight. So, I really encourage everyone to get involved. I encourage everyone to find a space, whether it's with, what we do, or if it's another group or whatever you're doing. I really encourage people to get involved and make a difference in their local community, run for office, go vote, go to school board meetings. I've been doing a lot of that lately. You'll learn a lot. I recently learned superintendents make like $220,000. Did you know that? That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I'm in the I'm in the wrong line of business. I should have went to education, but that's things that you'll learn. So I really just ending it there. Get off the couch, go do something.
Join your local GOP. They will always need volunteers. Your local GOP.
Or Young Republicans. We're both very involved in Young Republicans.
Yes.
Get involved, yo. Make a difference. I recommended Chris on Snapchat for running for office. I don't even know what I did. I was like, yeah, this guy should do it. So
I clicked on it and nothing happened. It was like it was like a link to like a website or something, but it like I don't think it was going anywhere. But you can check out
Chris.
Well, now they know.
We'll run your campaign.
Well, thank you.
now
I'm
Facebook
planning it
knows.
eventually. We'll see. I'll run eventually.
Well, Chris, if you need any advice, let me know. Thatpoliticalcouple.com. We have a ton of advice up there. But no, my husband ran into the 2020 election. So, like, serious note, if you are interested, let me know and we can talk.
Oh, definitely. I'll definitely reach out. Thank you.
fantastic. Well, y'all, again, thank you so much for joining on. Everybody for tuning in. Thank you if you stayed on this far. This has been another episode of Black Friday where these opinions are not for sale. You can't find them anywhere else. We will see y'all next time.